Ahoy! There was a mistake with a new thing in New World, but for once, it's actually something that can be beneficial for you. Along with that, we're also going to talk about the patch that came out, because that has also been adjusted. Some changes have actually been reverted, or removed rather, and we're going to talk about the Outpost Rush map. So, beginning with the thing you're seeing here, the beta participants coconut. This is what you get if you have played Outpost Rush, the new map, during the preview, so you can get up to 4 of them. It doesn't seem like the 5th day the extension counted for an extra award, but these are not normal Goldcursed coconuts. Instead, you can see they can be used in a variety of different recipes, and some of them can be quite useful, since these are all locked 725. Now, it is unclear if this was on purpose at all, as Lydia is saying here. Apologies for the delay, but the team is still investigating the issue with the coconuts. We'll provide updates once we have come to a resolution. I imagine at this point some people have crafted with the coconut and some haven't, and probably would prefer the other version, so I don't know how they're gonna solve this. Assuming there is a possibility that they will change this to a Goldcursed coconut later, you have to decide for yourself if you want to use yours now, and if you do, then you might want to do it quickly. And there are some pieces here that I think are worth considering. My favorite one is the one that I used multiple rolls on. The Gorgon's earring, which comes with Regenerating Locked and Magnify. Because if you look at the artifacts, we have one with Empowering and Fortifying Toast with Endless Thirst, which I think is very strong in that combination, but you can't really get Refreshing Toast as well as Regenerating on that. And similarly with Justice, you have Empowering Toast and Healing Heart, so you can't get both of those other perks together. I believe that with the change to potions in general, Regenerating has very good value, and Nimble is always debated anyways. And look at the craft pool here. Since we already have Regenerating, we can for example lock Empowering Toast, so this is our lock perk. That gives us a 42.55% chance to roll Refreshing Toast, which in my opinion is a very strong combination. Same thing would apply if you roll Fortifying Toast instead. So I did both of those and got some pretty good pieces. In one case I ended up with Healing Heart on the Fortifying Toast one, but that's still a pretty nice combination, to be honest. The Gorgon's Ring rolls with Hearty, which in my opinion is technically great because you want that perk on any ring, but also not that great because that is a high chance perk to get on any ring roll. That means you have 3 competing perks here: Refreshing, Purifying Heart, and Sacred, and you probably only want one of them, if any, so that's probably not going to be ideal for most. The amulet comes with Health Locked, which is again very strong, but also a commonly rolled perk anyways. And if we look at the perk pool here, we have Unimpeded and Refreshing and Alchemist Reprieve and Empowered all sitting at the same chance, which makes the chance to actually get what you want relatively low in comparison. All armor pieces come with Enchanted Ward. This is a very nice base hit as well, and all of them are again 725 with Magnify. The downside here is that the highest roll perks that come along with that are Health, Refreshing, and Empowering Breaker, for example, for the gauntlets here, so whatever specific perk you have for that armor piece. Not necessarily the perks that most people want these days in most builds again. And since you can roll so many different perks here, the chances are also spread beyond that. The weapons all come with Enchanted, and typically the highest roll perk on them is either Vorpal or Keen. As such, I don't think they have all too much value because you can't really remove these perks either, since they're the ones sitting on the critical and accuracy label. They're not really competing with anything else that you could slot to take them away. And as such, I would not recommend using the beta participants coconut to craft the weapons, unless you have a very specific goal with that, and instead wait and see if they get converted into Goldcursed coconuts, so you can use them for artifact upgrades. But if you already have the artifact upgrades that you want, definitely a nice bonus. Next, a ton of the tank changes seem to no longer be in the patch. They have been removed. Here's the announcement from Lydia. We'll talk about the changes in detail a little bit later. Let's first talk about the changes that actually made it into the patch. They fixed an issue that prevented magic weapon light attacks from firing when cancelling from a dodge. The Puck Finder in normal expeditions now only gates based on level rather than gear score, preventing players from artificially lowering their gear score. What everyone was doing was lowering their gear score so much that they only had high enough gear score for Amrine, then run that really quick and get an easy 1000 gold or 3000 gold if you do it 3 times a day. Obviously very repetitive, very boring, but relatively effective compared to having to run longer expeditions, so I think most people will just stop running expeditions through the Finder now. An animation cancel for the hatchet's Berserk was fixed, and an issue where some effects of Primal Fury could apply indefinitely. Once again, a way was found to climb into war camps, which has been resolved. The tower shield portion of the final countdown portion of Defender's Resolve is now a Fortify instead of base damage reduction. This is the additional 20% that you get for using a tower shield. So this is generally going to be a weaker reduction. Now Fortify typically not as effective as base damage reduction. They also added a 15 seconds cooldown to the Sturdy Energy perk, which is the one that you get from the chest or from your shield. And also separately, this is a separate point, increased the cooldown of the Stamina Recovery perk to 60 seconds. Finally, that one's being brought in line with other perks, even though some other perks still have a longer cooldown. But it's interesting that at the end of the day, it ended up being the tanks rather than the light roll that pushed the cooldown of this to what it should have been from the start. But oh well, take it. And that brings us back to the changes that were removed, which are again targeting tanks too. They say here that these changes may not have gone live, but may do so in a future update. So the first one is we have some back-end functionality that reduces the attacker's block stamina damage dealt for 0.5 seconds after taking a hit. Previously the value was a 25% reduction, but we've changed that to be 13% reduction. I never knew about this before, and I've played tank a lot. I don't know if they ever mentioned this mechanic before, since it is just a back-end thing. It seems odd that it exists in the first place and is not specified much, at least. So I don't even know why they're leaving it in, and I don't see the real purpose behind it, but we'll see if they're leaving it in long term. For the wall artifact, they reduced the elemental base damage reduction from 25% to 13%. Very curious what statistics led to this decision. Generally, a lot of tanks don't even value wall that much. It's more like the entry-level tower shield for a lot of them until they have something better, because most tanks prefer being able to dodge in many situations. Not always, but I find it surprising that this is specifically getting a targeted nerf. This may be war-related, I'm unsure here. They reduced the power of the refreshing ward perk on older named items that were at 625 gear score or lower, or rather they didn't reduce it because this never went through. Very surprising that they didn't go through with this one in particular, which makes me think that they wanted to do these changes but just weren't able to fit them into the patch, because obviously it's a bit odd that a seemingly killed off perk, that perk, is still so prevalent, so effective in so many situations due to the gear score not being that relevant, but the perk being so strong that you just use it with a full refreshing set. They also reduced the base damage reduction while grid is active for the 350 con attribute threshold from 10% to 7%, which honestly no one would really change their build because of that, so it's a bit whatever. It's obviously something that could be impactful in some situations, but I don't think people would really change builds for it. And they also added a 1 second cooldown timer to the tower shield functionality of the one with the shield passive for the sword and shield. That is, being hit or blocking a hit will extend the duration of all buffs on self by 5%. Seems fair enough that you can't mass increase when you're getting hit a lot in quick succession. Again, these are the changes that end up not going through and may do so in the future. And last but not least, a quick summary of the OPR feedback. They got very positive feedback, and many players told them to just turn on the new OPR map. I'm one of those. They said that more of the matches were closer in score overall than on the old map, and they generally achieved the goal of making all weapons and all builds viable to some degree. They will be reducing the vegetation for better performance, and they will be redoing some of the lighting for the same reason, also to reduce saturation in some places, to just make it look a little bit less overly vibrant. They're also doing some collision fixes so you don't get stuck on as many things. Hopefully that's including those carts and some of those places. Also, there's a fix to being able to climb into enemy forts. I'm sure people find more ways to do that in the future. They also changed the uneven travel times between the sides, because one side was able to get to the point a little bit earlier. The left side could go there a bit quicker. Bridges will be cheaper to build. They also changed some path in the north to make bridges a bit more viable there, a bit more valuable. And also bridges will be buildable from both sides, which is surprisingly important because it's very difficult to go with your ores and go back through base to even be able to build the bridge. So this one's a huge improvement, especially if they need less resources and people might actually use bridges now. They removed the barriers in front of Baroness because there are still walls anyways, so there's not really any reason to have them to block shots. There will be a full preview week for the new OPR map from April 15 to April 21, which effectively means they're not releasing it this season. They're definitely going to wait on until next season, and that's going to be their big thing for next season. One last round of maybe minor fixes, maybe a little bit more feedback, but more so the opportunity for people to just play a little bit, and then because they can announce big things for the next season, they're going to be like, this is our big thing we're doing next season, which in my opinion is way too far away, but from a marketing standpoint it kind of makes sense, so it is what it is. They also asked how frequent of a map rotation we want in the future and what we would like to see in another OPR map, because they already said that they are making more OPR maps, so this is not the last map. Hopefully we'll see the old one in rotation as little as possible, to be honest. I'm expecting this to be the last major New World update in a while, since there's the Q&A coming up that I can talk about, but other than that, I think there's not really anything happening, at least this month, given that the next OPR preview is a month from now, so expect June in between and some other stuff that I want to talk about. If you're interested in that and new to the channel, consider subscribing and clicking the bell, and if you'd like to support me further, you can do so on Patreon. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that, and thank you for watching. Sloth out.